I guess the main goals on the web side of things would be to have a clean and focused design, dynamic content, including interactive data dashboards, which we ended up using Tableau for that. And we definitely wanted it to be easy to navigate and use on all devices, especially since our board often uses iPads. So there's kind of an iPad first design methodology. So this is what we came up with. There are 3 different presentations that kind of talk about this site at this conference. I hope everyone, I hope that you find it useful and interesting. I think there are a lot of dimensions to this, and this particular dimension, accessibility, was a really interesting one to me. So I thought this turned out pretty well. You know, I think those goals, if I flip back there, clean and focused design, looks pretty clean and focused. You got your dynamic content with your interactive data dashboards. So you can see where you can change the metric and the university, and this will dynamically change. And then, is it easy to navigate and use on all devices? Well, you'll have to take my word for it on that one, but yes, it is. We tested that thoroughly. So the accessibility journey, you know, accessibility is just throw some alt tags on the images, have an Excel data download since we're data people, and we're good to go, right? That was a joke. I hope I hope you took it as a joke. But honestly, when I first started working on this site, that might have been about it, because my knowledge and my skills were really not current. They were current as of about 10 years ago, really. And you know, just to show my ignorance on this, I definitely was well versed in Section 508, but I honestly didn't even know that it had been revised in 2017. So I had a lot to learn. Fortunately, a good friend and colleague of mine, when you're named Keith Wessel at the University of Illinois, encouraged me. It's nice to have encouragement rather than discouragement when you're trying to tackle accessibility, because it's a big topic. He really strongly encouraged me to join this fairly new program at the University of Illinois called the Information Technology Accessibility Liaison Program. So I already felt like I had way more committees and programs and meetings than I could even deal with as it was, but I grudgingly said yes, kind of honestly as a bit of a 2020 New Year's resolution. And oh boy, if I knew what 2020 was going to bring, maybe I had made some other resolutions as well. But anyway, so my colleague Ben Sands also graciously agreed to join in from our office. So it's nice to not be alone on this journey. And just to talk about this program briefly, the ITAL program, as they call it, it was a volunteer effort, began in April of 2019. Does not require a technical background, but it does require an interest in learning about and promoting digital accessibility. And I actually do have a technical background, so that helps, but I definitely did have an interest in learning about and promoting digital accessibility. The goals of this program are to honor and recognize accessibility work already being done. Again, there's some encouragement there rather than discouragement. Equip staff through training, network, and community building, and then that's definitely happening. And then scale the outreach by providing a knowledgeable person or persons, such as in our case with Ben and I, within each campus unit. And I just checked the website before this meeting and found that we're up to over 150 people and over 50 units, and that's growing every day. So that's great. One thing that has been emphasized all along in this program is that the ITAL folks are not the accessibility police. And actually, you know, I even with all my training and things I've learned, I'm still not even close to any sort of expert level. So I wouldn't even try to tell people what to do. So hopefully you don't view this presentation as me telling you what to do, but more as things I have learned along the way as a real novice in this area, and I fully expect that I have done some things that aren't the best practice, or I've made some mistakes along the way. So caveat there. Things that we did get right when we first designed the site. We made it responsive. We wanted to make sure that the text and graphics scaled based on the size of the screen. And we did that using cascading style sheets and the media tag. We also found out along the way a trick, I guess, to make Tableau also scale, because that was proving to be challenging. So we just used percentages. These are different cascading style sheet descriptions or variables, I guess I should say. And so you can see this is for our iframe that our Tableau content lives in. And in this case, when our screen width is between 1 pixel and 767 pixels, so think like, you know, a mobile device, then we're scaling the visualization down to 60% of its original size. That's what the 0.60 stuff is about. So that actually seemed to work pretty well, and I hadn't seen that discussed much online, so I thought I would share that tip with you. We made sure that our colors were contrasting and that they worked for colorblind users. So I put a few links in here to the WebAIM contrast checker, and also a free color blindness simulator that I've used for years and years named Color Oracle. You download it, install it. Well, you just run it really as a Java app, and it will simulate what your screen looks like for different types of color blindness. So we did check that. And it's a low bar, but we did make sure our HTML was valid using validator.w3.org. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. So it's time to move to the next level of accessibility. The ITAL group often talks about screen readers, and in case you're not familiar with a screen reader, it's a form of assistive technology that renders text and image content as speech or braille output. That's from Wikipedia. So there is such a thing as a braille reader, which is a pretty interesting thing to check out if you ever have a chance. But we're going to just use the screen reader to basically talk the text and images on the screen at us so we can hear it. It's mainly used by non-sighted users, but there are some sighted users who find it useful technology as well. So it's good to get familiar with it. I decided that it was really past time to try out a screen reader on our metrics site. I will say that the main reason that I had avoided screen readers in the past was the cost. JAWS, which was one of the more popular readers for many years, was very expensive. I know at times it was the cost was, you know, sometimes over $1,000 per license, and you know, we didn't. Most offices I've worked in for the university, and I'm sure your experiences are similar, we don't generally have lots of extra cash to throw around. So again, my friend Keith, who has been using screen readers since the 1980s, actually, and sorry to date you there, Keith, but just to show how experienced he is in this, I asked for his advice, and he said, you know, if you're going to start with one, start with NVDA, which was a new acronym to me. So NVDA is a free and open source program developed by a nonprofit, and they do take donations. It does only run on Windows, but you can run it on a Mac with Boot Camp or Parallels, which is actually what I do since I'm home, working from home and using my MacBook as my main computer right now. There's a link there to download it at the top. And since we're all data people, I couldn't resist throwing in a line graph here over time of usage. This is a survey that's taken annually. Usage of the different screen readers, popularity, I guess, over time. So JAWS that I mentioned earlier, the really expensive one, used to really have pretty much the whole market share, but you can see how since 2009, this has really reversed, and NVDA has finally in 2019 taken over JAWS as the most popular, and I would imagine we'll continue to trend that direction. VoiceOver is the screen reader built into the Mac operating system. So it's got a small market share. These are the this graph is showing primary screen reader usage. So people may use multiple screen readers, and we'll get to that later. So as a starting point here for accessibility improvements, I happen to still have an old copy of our website before we started making accessibility improvements, other than just real basic stuff. And fortunately, the general public never got to see this version of the site, but I thought it would be a good illustration to fire this up in NVDA and see how well we can navigate this just using the keyboard, which is how you navigate in NVDA if you're non-sighted. Okay, so I've switched over to my Windows desktop on my Mac with Parallels, and now I'm going to open up NVDA. You'll hear a little musical chime. It's open. Now it's reading everything on the screen. I'm going to switch over to the website here. University of Illinois Greater University Office for Planning and Budgeting. I'm going to stop this along the way too to make comments. So you just heard the title of the page being read. Graphic University of Illinois: Champaign-Urbana, Chicago, Springfield. It's reading that top header. Heading Level 1 University Office for Planning and Budgeting. Bot performance metrics link metric index. Okay, I want to stop it there. So it just read text. BOT performance metrics is how I would read that, but it read it bot performance metrics. So we'll come back to that in a bit. Link graphic home. Link home. Visited link graphic student recruitment and enrollment. Visited link student recruitment and enrollment. I'm going to stop it there. So you might notice that it's reading some of these things twice. It said student recruitment and enrollment, student recruitment and enrollment. That is due to the alt tags being on the images, which is actually something I was always told to do in terms of accessibility. Make sure your images have alt tags, but there may be times to break that rule. So we'll talk about that in a bit too. I also want to mention that when the screen reader got to these buttons, it didn't know that we were in any kind of navigation area. It's just saying they're links. So let's keep going. Link graphic student success. Link student success. Link graphic faculty and scholarship. Link faculty and link scholarship. Stopping it again here. You might have noticed it said faculty and scholarship, but then it said link faculty and link scholarship, which is irritating if you're trying to figure out what's going on. That's because there was a line feed separating faculty and from scholarship, and the screen reader wanted you to know that, but it's not helpful. So we'll take care of that as well. Let's keep going. Link graphic finance and productivity. Link finance and link productivity. Link graphic research and technology transfer. Link research and link technology transfer. Link graphic advancement. Link advancement. Student recruitment and enrollment clickable admission. All right, stopping again because student recruitment and enrollment is obviously a header on the page, and it was not announced as a header. Neither was the bot performance metrics announced as a header. The headers are a very important way that people who use screen readers can navigate the site to figure out where they are. So those are some pretty major problems that will need to be fixed. Clickable enrollment. It was really hard to hear, but I'm just going to tell you that the admissions button is selected here. It just said something about clickable enrollment. It did not say anything to me that admissions was actually selected. How am I supposed to know that? I can't see that. So let's keep going. Clickable tuition and financial aid. So again, these elements, admissions, enrollment, tuition and financial aid, they're not announced as being part of any sort of navigation on the site. They're just clickable. So we're also confused here. Let's keep going.
Clickable Urbana logo button, clickable Chicago logo button, clickable Springfield logo button, link jump.
Again, Urbana is selected right now, but it just said clickable Urbana, clickable Chicago, clickable Springfield. This is a big problem. Let's keep going.
To dashboard link peer groups, clickable data visualization frame, clickable application out of frame. Link return to top link graphic download.
Okay, now here is the real fun part. We got to the Tableau visualization, and all that we get for that from the screen reader is clickable data visualization frame, clickable application out of frame. So it got to that, and it told us that we do at least have a data visualization, but what in the world are we supposed to do with that? So we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so what we're going to try to do now is actually navigate this site using only the keyboard. I really have an unfair advantage here because I can also see the text and images on the screen. But what I'm going to do is, try to simulate this as much as possible, where we're just using the tab key to move forward and shift tab to move back, and selecting elements with the enter key. So let me start here. Sorry, NVDA was not open. Go back to NVDA again. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm navigating with the tab key. All right, so
student recruitment and enrollment graphic, student recruitment and enrollment visited link.
So I'm going to skip ahead a bit. We've already heard all this. We know this.
For graphic research and technology advancement graphic advancement link.
Okay, let's go next.
Jump to dashboard link.
Now wait a minute. There's a really big problem here. We just jumped from the navigation buttons at the top, skipped entirely past the dashboard selection buttons, the admissions, enrollment, tuition, financial aid, and the university selection buttons, and went right to this jump to dashboard link. So we'll talk about what might cause that in a minute, but that is a really big problem. Let's keep going.
Peer groups link. Application. Form landmark. Select a metric grouping. New freshman percent admitted radio button checked 1 of 7.
Okay, so now we're inside the Tableau visualization, and it's put us directly into the select a metric area. It said a bunch of things that seem a bit extraneous to me, but this is okay. I mean, I'm at least glad I can select some things here.
New freshman percent enrolled radio button not checked 2 of 7.
Okay, so it's telling me that I can select these things.
Graphic, press ESC to clear any marked selections. To open a view data window, press Control-Shift-Enter.
Okay, that was hard to catch, so let me go back so you can hear this again. I'm moving off of the button selector, and listen to what it says when I go to the new freshman percent admitted. At least I don't know why I'm bouncing around in this kind of order, but here we go.
Data visualization graphic, press ESC to clear any marked selections. To open a view data window, press Control-Shift-Enter.
Data visualization graphic. That's interesting because that doesn't look like a graphic. That looks like text to me. But it's giving us some kind of cue here to press Control-Shift-Enter to open the data window. So let's try that.
Untitled-Google Chrome. https://tableau.admin.illinois.edu/fiscal/w/bot performance metrics student recruitment enrollment admission v dashboard view data session /8 970,851,254 cubic centimeters 8b 1756 fa 49849 ac 74-1:2 /view /3855800012607193825 line 12284023000.
Okay, I've had enough of that. I don't know about you. So we ended up on this untitled page where we're seeing summary slide new freshman percent admitted on the screen, but we're not really able to see anything. All right, please be quiet. That was sure a lot of reading for something on the screen that just says new freshman percent admitted with some other stuff. So obviously that was kind of a bust in terms of hoping that might get us to something accessible. Let's keep going down this rabbit hole. Let's follow this download all rows as a text file link.
Downloading 0% remaining alert. Download complete : dashboard line title line data.csv.
All right, so downloaded a CSV file.
Dashboard line title space.
Let's go ahead and open this. I'm still just using the keyboard.
Dashboard line title line data dash Excel. Dashboard line title line data table. Slide A1.
Go to the next cell.
Percent admitted overflowing A2.
All right, so at least we finally get new freshman percent admitted, but that is really not helpful. I'm going to cheat and use the mouse here for a second.
View data dash Google Chrome.
Okay, I'm going back. Okay, so that was scary. Let's keep going here a little bit.
Data visualization graphic. Press ESC to clear any mark selections.
There's a data visualization graphic again.
Control Shift Enter.
Even though it looks like a table of text to me.
Data visualization graphic. Press ESC to clear any mark selections.
So that one actually does look like a visualization graphic.
Data visualization graphic. Press ESC to clear
There's
any
our
mark selections.
footnote as a data visualization graphic.
Data visualization graphic. Press ESC to clear any
That
mark
one is a
selections.
graphic. That's our logo.
Form landmark.
Now I've skipped ahead to the university selection.
Data visualization graphic.
There's our legend. There's our summary. So we're bouncing all over the place here. Let me just try one more thing before I just completely give up on this. Let's go to the table itself, because not that I even know that that's a table. It's just data visualization graphic. So let's follow the directions again. Control Shift Enter to get to the data window.
View data dash Google Chrome. View data. Heading level 1 view data. Tab selected summary.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get into the
main landmark summary property page.
Tabbed
Download
in.
all rows as a text file link. Download all rows as a text file
I
link.
still can't get this to read any of that,
All rows as a text file link.
but let's just follow this one more time.
Untitled dash Google Chrome. Downloading 0% remaining alert. Download complete :
Okay, download complete.
Download
Let's
options menu. Admit line rate
open the CSV again.
Admit line rate line table line data left paren. One right
Okay,
paren.
I'm not going to have this read through all of this,
Line table line data left
but
paren. One right paren.
I'll let you
Table.
see this, and you can
Prompt A1.
you can see that we do have the data in here, but it's not anywhere near the same format that we had before. So that's it's a kind of a vertical data rather than horizontal like we had in the table. So it's kind of there, but also not what we were seeing, not what we want people to see, not in the format that sighted users can see it. So I think we've seen enough of this.
Number lock on.
So let's talk about how we might fix some of these issues. We'll start with the low-hanging fruit, and don't worry, many of these issues that I identified, especially really with some of the major ones, are very, very easy to fix. I'm sure you'll find similar things if you start investigating your sites with a screen reader. When the screen reader said bot instead of board of trustees, let's just type out board of trustees. That's probably better in terms of usability for everyone anyway. Maybe some people don't know that acronym. The header tags, H1, H2, H3, we just have to add those to our HTML. So just wrap the text with those tags in a, think about it in a hierarchical order where, the highest header is H1 and the next is H2. That's easy. Now for those images inside of those top navigation buttons where it was saying student recruitment and enrollment, and then it was saying again student recruitment and enrollment. those images were really extraneous. I mean, they're just eye candy. They're not useful for navigation. So just go ahead and set the alt tags to blank. Break that rule of you always have to have an alt tag for an image, and don't do it in a cavalier fashion. But we're sure that this will actually improve things for the screen reader users. So let's do that. Now for the buttons where we have the line feed in the text, when we had link faculty and link scholarship, instead of just faculty and scholarship, we're going to use a bit of a trick where we're going to take advantage of this ARIA technology. So ARIA is Accessible Rich Internet Applications, and that is basically it defines ways to make content and applications more accessible to assistive technology users, such as screen readers. Perfect. So it's not cheating, it's just helping your screen reader users. It won't affect everyone else. Your browser just won't really do anything with it other than the screen reader will respect it. So we're going to add ARIA hidden equals true to our BR tag, and then the screen reader won't read that line feed. It will just ignore it, and then it will say faculty and scholarship instead of link faculty and link scholarship. Some of these other fixes are a little more challenging, but not too bad. The navigation issues that we identified we were just completely missing some parts of the site. Let's just go all out on navigation here and surround any navigable area with ARIA, with a nav tag, and also use ARIA labels. So the nav tag is an HTML5 thing, so it's fairly new in the grand scheme of HTML. So yeah, if we just surround our content with nav and then say metric area ribbon navigation for our label, then when we get to that, it will be very clearly announced by the screen reader that we're navigating. We're in a navigable area. So that will be a big improvement. Also, what we can do is in that section where we were just skipping over everything entirely, let's change those buttons that they look like buttons from the divs that they actually were in the old code to actual buttons, just button tag. It's always a good idea for not just for accessibility, but even just for validation of your sites to use elements that are the best, most descriptive element rather than just a generic div. There's a button element in HTML, you might as well use it. And we're also going to set ARIA pressed values, which is kind of interesting. So you can see the code down here, the HTML, that the button is has an ID. ARIA pressed in this case was false. This other stuff, this on click is the JavaScript that could change things dynamically, and it will. So if you click on one of these buttons, then this JavaScript will fire off and change this ARIA pressed equal to true. And that way, we won't have that issue anymore where the screen reader doesn't know that the button was pressed, and it will change dynamically. So when the screen reader user presses another button, it will say pressed. So seems simple, but really important. And that this example was looking at the admissions button. That's what this text is here. So now we're done, right? We can just call it a day. No, we've skipped the biggest problem of all, which is the Tableau dashboards. Pretty much the heart of the site. And we're really just accommodating users, screen reader users, because we're forcing them out of Tableau, really, because we saw how unusable that was, into this download data link. So we've made this accommodation. We know you can't use Tableau, so just go to download data and do it that way. That's fine. I mean, Excel files can be made very accessible, but that's really not the point. The point is they just don't have the same experience, and plus they can't even get to that download data link without having to work their way through that whole Tableau dashboard window that was very confusing. I mean, you had to tab, and you're jumping all over the place. And what are all these data visualization graphics that, they have no idea. So this is obviously a big problem. And I know that many of you are probably familiar with this. You maybe have seen this illustration in other contexts, but it just really hits home here. So I wanted to share it again. What is, accommodation versus accessibility? So, on the left, you see that everyone's trying to watch the soccer game here, soccer match, whatever you prefer. And the fence obviously makes it hard for the person on the right to be able to see the game. And so they're just out of the game. So we're not doing that here. The people who are using the screen readers not out of the game. They can get the download data as long as they have Excel, and maybe they don't even have Excel. But we're in the middle here really with our accommodation. So we've done some extra work. We have to make those accommodations there to add them to the site. But really, we want to move to this on the right, where the design from the beginning is everybody can see everything, and the experience should be no different for those who need to use a screen reader or other assistive technologies versus those who don't. This graphic came from this link here. So our journey continues. Enter Vance Martin. Vance is the Executive Policy Advisor for Accessibility, hope I got that right, at the University of Illinois Board of Trustees office. And he has quite a bit of experience in accessibility, and he's fairly new to this role with the Board of Trustees. But he worked with us a lot on this site. And again, really encouraged us to make this experience of using the site, especially the dashboards, the Tableau part, as close to the same as it is for the sighted users, for those who use the screen readers. He also pointed out something I hadn't really noticed, which is very annoying, that the header of the site was being reread by the screen reader every single time. This is really not a Tableau issue. It's more of the way I designed the website. And there's such an easy solution to that, which is to add a skip to main content link on every page. So I did that, and then the screen reader users don't have to get fatigued by hearing that header over and over and over again. Now, Tableau. So we've already discussed this a little bit. Any of those dynamic text elements. So what I mean by that is text that can change, based on a selection. So those headers that we had at the top on the dashboard will change based on the metric selected, which makes sense, right? But Tableau will not render that as text. It's rendering it as an image, and there's not even an alt tag. We use that all over the place in these dashboards, so that is not good. The real head scratcher to me is that the tables are always rendered in Tableau as images. I mean, I kind of understand why you do it, because there's potentially a lot of formatting in the tables. Tableau, you can get really fancy. You can kind of hack things together, make the tables do just about whatever you want. But this is just completely not accessible. You can do that Control-Shift-Enter thing that we did to get the data in what I would call a very raw format, but it's not the same experience that the sighted users have at all. Now, take this with a grain of salt, but I did some very limited accessibility testing of Power BI, and it seems that it renders tables as HTML and not as images. Again, double check me on that, but that alone could be a big improvement. So what are we going to do? Maybe we can work around it. That was my first thought. So I looked into automated narrative generation add-ons. So there are these really cool technologies. They're AI based, that such as Wordsmith and narratives for Tableau. These are kind of extensions for Tableau. You could even install them on a server that will kind of look at a visualization and create text to go along with it to explain it. Unfortunately, looking into this further, we found out they're way out of our price range. And even the accessibility of these solutions, still somewhat of an unknown. I was not really able to test them, but just the more I looked into it, the more I realized this was just not going to cut it. So finally, the solution, and you're not going to like it, unfortunately. I sure didn't, but it definitely does the job. Basically, we are going to take Tableau kind of out of the picture here. So the div that contains Tableau, and out of the picture just for screen readers, I should qualify that. The divider in HTML that contains the Tableau iframe, we're going to set that to aria hidden equals true. So there's our aria technology again. So that means a screen reader is just going to ignore it. It won't read it. That will prevent that confusion. We're also going to set that div, same one, the iframe, to tab indexes -1. That means the screen reader will just skip it when we're using the tab navigation, so it's not going to cause any confusion there. And then finally, this is that part. Those two parts are easy. This is the part that really takes a lot of work. We're going to kind of rebuild all the dynamic content in Tableau in a div using JavaScript and Cold Fusion and our SQL database, all that. And the key here is it's going to be invisible to the sighted users, only visible to the screen readers. And it's going to replicate our Tableau dashboard content as closely as possible. So there's that code for screen reader only. This is a class in cascading style sheets that will basically just move it off the screen. You can Google this. This is pretty common code, but this works great with screen readers. No one who's using a regular browser without assistive technology will have any idea that that extra text is there. So how I did this on the back end, there's a table, and we had this anyways, but this is kind of foundational to making this work, that this KPI table that contains all the information about each of the metrics, the university it applies to, the name, there's a full name and a short name, because one of these could be for the header and the other for the metric itself. Sometimes we like a shorter name for selecting. This is the table, the data table that it relates to. We'll get to that in a second. The area that it belongs to on the site, the page, this is just metadata basically about the metrics themselves. But these are all the things that are in that dashboard, not just the data, because we have to remember there's a lot of text there too. So let's just take a look at one of the Tableau dashboards and see, this is how this maps, that this is the line 1 of the full name, line 2, and here's the summary, campus comments, they can have up to 3 of those. Here's that short name I was talking about for the metric, university. Sometimes we have a subcategory that we can choose from. Footnotes, and here's where that data table would come into play. So again, these are just good things to have anyway. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel so much, but it is a lot of extra work to bring this into your website without using Tableau. That's what Tableau is great for, is saving you all that work. So this is thanks to my colleague, Nick O'Day. He just did a Herculean task here. But again, this can be used and reused in other contexts. So it's not totally reinventing the wheel. He has created for me a table for each metric that has the data in that format that we want for and we're going to use this for the screen readers, that horizontally shaped data rather than the vertical that Tableau was trying to give us when we were using the screen reader. So you can see all these tables here, and they're very generic, which is good because then I can just kind of select star, and then I can display those on the website. All I have to do is select for university. I can pass that in with JavaScript to my database, Cold Fusion. And then, when we hit the new year and we're going to add like 2020 here, I don't have to change anything in my code. I'm just select star the table and it will give me what I need. This is really important. When you're displaying tabular data in HTML, there's a lot you can do on the accessibility side to make it much easier for screen reader users. One of the first things you can do is you can put the header itself into these T-head tags. So I did that. And then the body goes in T-body. You can also scope things. And this is really critical. So if you scope these as columns in your header here, and then you scope the rows as rows, I know this sounds kind of, no-brainer type stuff, but it'll make a big difference in the accessibility. The screen reader will be able to actually, well, we'll get to that. You'll see how easy it becomes, but it will announce those headers, and you'll be able to know kind of where you are in the table. So now I'm going to give you a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, where I'm going to show you what this hidden region looks like. I'm going to reveal it, I guess. So here's what the screen reader sees that the other non-screen reader users can't see. There is this whole area here between the top and bottom where all of the dashboard content is replicated. It's generated with Cold Fusion functions that are calling out to our database, and AJAX calls are used so that the page can update dynamically without having to be reloaded. So you can see the metric selector is here as buttons. There's the metric full name with a period at the end just to give the screen reader a moment to pause. The summary, the table itself, and the footnotes and the source. So this is all being replicated very nicely. This is, I consider, true accessibility and not just accommodation. These selections that are made here, if I make a selection, use the keyboard, choose a different metric, you'll notice that this area gets updated and it's got a rectangle around it. That means it's in focus, and that means a screen reader will immediately tell the user about that change. You also saw this down here at the bottom. These are just functions. I just logged these so you can see these are all the functions that are being called. Set the button, get the header asynchronously, metric select. This just shows what was selected, get the table data. So those are all those functions that are called behind the scenes. So you'll also note that when something changed up here, when I selected this, this actually changed the dashboard as well. It's kind of a future use thing. If we ever decide to take the selector off of here and just have it up here, then this will work and no one will be the wiser about any of this. And vice versa, if I select something in here, this will be updated at the top as well. So it's kind of a nice feature. The way that part works is there's the Tableau JavaScript API, which I'm passing parameters to the dashboard on our Tableau server. And then on the other side of things, the Tableau JavaScript API has event listeners that are capturing clicks in the dashboard and sending it back to the website.
Number lock on.
So now that we've taken our tour behind the curtain, we're going to actually use the screen reader itself to see how this all turned out. So I'm kind of excited to do this. Let's go ahead and reload the page. Hopefully this stuff at the beginning will not be too distracting, but it's just going through the header, and we'll get to the main content here in a second. So I'm in the student success area. Do you hear the skip to main content there? We added that.
Budgeting dashboard of trustees performance metrics student success. Button skip to main content.
There's that skip to main content button.
Champaign-Urbana, Chicago, Springfield. Heading level 1 University Office for Planning and Budgeting.
There's heading level 1.
Heading level 2 Board
heading level 2.
Performance metrics link
Okay.
metric inventory metric area ribbon navigation landmark link home.
Ribbon navigation.
Recruitment and enrollment.
So we know what that's
Visited
for.
link current student success.
Visited link current student success.
Link finance and
These others are possible links to visit, but that's nice. It tells us where we are.
Main landmark heading level 3 student success dashboard selection navigation landmark toggle button pressed graduation and retention toggle button not pressed degrees awarded.
So we had heading level 3 student success, and we also had graduation retention.
University selection navigation landmark toggle button pressed Urbana toggle button not pressed Chicago toggle.
And then another navigation area, and Urbana was selected.
Metric selection navigation landmark select a metric colon. Toggle
here's
button
our
pressed.
hidden
New
part.
freshman 6-year graduation rate toggle button not pressed. New freshman under up 6-year grad rate toggle button not pressed. New toggle button not pressed. Freshman 4-year graduation rate toggle button not pressed. New
So those are all toggle buttons.
4-year grad rate toggle button not pressed. Freshman retention rate.
Those are not pressed.
Metric full name colon. First dash time freshman 6-year graduation rates.
There's our title.
2014-2019.
Uh-huh.
Summary colon.
Comes
The 6-year
summary.
graduation rate at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign is on PAR with the peer median.
I don't know why it says
Table with
PAR,
5
but
rows and
can't
7
change that.
columns, row 1 metric, column 1 metric. 2014
Here's the
column
table.
2, 2014. 2015 column 3, 2015.
So it announced how many rows and columns there were. That was
2016
helpful.
column 4, 2016. 2017 column 5, 2017.
So it's just giving us the table header right now.
2018 column 6, 2018. 2019 column 7, 2019. New freshman 6-year graduation rate, row 2 metric, column 1 new freshman 6-year graduation rate.
Okay.
2014 column 2 84.2%.
So 84.2% for 2014 for the new freshman 6-year graduation rate. It's going to read those table headers over and over for each value, so you know where you are in the table. That was those tags that we added that facilitate that.
Peer 75th percentile, row 3
Scope
metric, column 1
tags.
peer 75th percentile.
Okay, peer 75th percentile.
2014 column 2 89.9%.
89.9%, 2014.
89.2%.
Next year.
2016 column 4 90.2%.
Next year, 90.2%.
2017 column 5 90.1%.
So you got to kind of tune your ear into this, but it does get easier with practice.
2019 column 7.
And you can change the speed of the readback as well. I have mine actually pretty slow right now compared to what most screen reader users will use it at, but I'm still learning.
2016 column 4 85.1%. 2017 column 5 86.1%. 2018 column 6 85.8%. 2019 column 7 no data.
No data. So, and that you can see that on the graph where the peer data is not available for the most recent years. So it's nice to have no data read out rather than just a blank.
2015 column 3 83.4%. 2016 column 4 83.7%. 2017 column 5 83.2%. 2018 column 6 83.7%. 2019 column 7 no data, out of table.
Out of table.
Footnote 1 colon.
And there's the footnote.
Year graduation rates reported in 2014-2019 above are for cohorts of freshmen beginning in the years 2008-2013. Footnote 2 colon.
Another footnote.
2013 full dash time first dash time freshman cohort size used to calculate the above rate in 2019 colon. 7,321 source colon. iPad's graduation rate survey.
iPad's graduation rate survey.
Download data button, download data.
There's our download data button, and that's basically it. So I think that was pretty successful. Just a few short comments to wrap things up. Now that we've had success with this, one thing you always have to do with any website is test it. And you're often testing it on different devices, different browsers. So if you thought it was fun to test all the browsers, get ready for a new challenge, because now you're going to test NVDA with Chrome, NVDA with Firefox, with Edge, etc. And you will find that it may read things a little bit differently because the different browsers will render the content differently than others. So you'll have to test that, and that will take some time. But think about now multiplying that by about 3 or more, because there's also VoiceOver, which is built into the Mac OS, or JAWS, which we mentioned earlier. Mobile devices as well. You could test VoiceOver on the iPhone, or TalkBack, which is built into Android. I will say that this sounds daunting, but in general, the things that I've noticed are, as long as you're really sticking closely to the best practices and using just great valid HTML code, you shouldn't have too much difficulty, not too many differences between the browsers. And just like anything else, you might want to focus your energies on the most popular browser with the most popular screen reader. So I would say in general, NVDA with Chrome or NVDA with Firefox are the things to target, but definitely try them out in those others. And JAWS, even though it's expensive, does allow you to use in kind of a trial mode for I think about 30 minutes at a time, you can try it out. And it might be worth doing because it's obviously still fairly popular. I will say that, these differences in the browsers, I have had to contact the developers at NVDA about a particular issue, and they were actually very responsive. We had to unfortunately agree to disagree on the resolution, but that's great. I haven't had a lot of experiences with vendors that are too responsive, and these, this is obviously free software, so I appreciate them getting back to me. In general, about vendors and accessibility, in particular data visualization vendors, I'm not trying to pick on Tableau, because if you go and look at others, you'll find the same old story, where most of them, pretty much all of them, I think, will be Section 508 and WCAG 2.0 AA at least compliant, and they'll hand you all sorts of their VPATs, their voluntary product accessibility templates, to show that they have tested things out, which they have. Now, I was on a call with a vendor, not Tableau, but a different one, not too long ago, and I asked them if have you tried out your product with a screen reader, and it was clear that they had not. And they even weren't familiar with NVDA, which was a little disappointing, but they were willing to try. They said, let me try it right now. I'll install it right now. But that was not in the cards. But yeah, the more you can check your vendors up front and make sure that software you're acquiring for any data reporting is accessible, the less reinventing the wheel or working around you're going to have to do down the road. In conclusion, build accessibility into your sites from the beginning rather than shoehorning it in later. Your future self will thank you, and your users definitely will appreciate it. It's just going to save you a lot of heartache if you just do it from the very beginning. And unfortunately, that's not exactly how we did it here, but you probably will have a lot of sites that already exist that you might have to shoehorn things into, or you might actually consider just scrapping it and starting over. It might, in the long run, be faster, better for a lot of reasons. It's up to you on that. Like I said, test your vendor solutions with screen readers. Don't trust but verify. So nothing beats a true test drive. It's not hard to use NVDA. Give it a shot. I'm encouraging you on this. And please, if you know of any data visualization vendors who really excel at accessibility, share that with the group. I've been on the hunt, and like I said, I saw a few things in Power BI that were encouraging, but there's definitely some other stuff in Power BI that's not the best in terms of accessibility. So if there's any vendor you know of, please let us know. That's it. So thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed the journey. Now we're going to open it up for some questions. All right. I hope that all came through okay. Any questions, comments? Any experiences with other tools maybe, or with Tableau with accessibility? I'd definitely be curious to hear if you've had success making your Tableau dashboards accessible without kind of the extreme measures that I went to. I know there are varying levels of accessibility, so be curious to hear about that.
Well, Chris, I actually do not have any experience in this, and so this was really a very fascinating, presentation to me, because it is so new to me. And yet it's still a world that people really need to be available.
It's very important. Personally, I feel a responsibility, but if that doesn't do it for you, then you can start to look at all the different lawsuits that are out there. It's not, it's kind of not Penn State's fault, but Penn State got nailed with a pretty substantial one a while back. And that should give everybody some pause in terms of, prioritizing accessibility, especially data visualization is just, more and more every day, just like the keynote mentioned, that visualization is not going anywhere. So we really need to prioritize this, in my opinion.
Sure. It's great. Great. So are there any other questions? I know we have the 3:30 session, the fun session. So please feel free to get into that, and they'll be collecting data to see, what everybody's interested in. I don't know all the questions, but so that would be nice. And Chris, we really appreciate your time and your presentation tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mary Lou, for helping me out. I appreciate that as well.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the session.